McGurk! I love
not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy. Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because her outfit,
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yes! Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are going to discuss and review Future State number 2, Kara Zor-El Superwoman, which was written by Marguerite Bennett, penciled, inked, and colored by Marguerite Sauvage. Wes Abbott is the letterer, and the cover artist is Paulina Ganusho. I hope that's right.
Feels close.
Ganusho? Okay, all right. Hopefully, Paulina, we got your name correctly here. But feel free to reach out and let us know if we didn't. So hopefully everybody's names is close anyway. All right. So I guess we've covered in our discussion of Future State number 1, the background of Future State, which we don't know much about.
Still a little hazy.
Regarding death metal, that I guess maybe at some point we could read if we really wanted to. But I guess we could go ahead and start talking about the issue itself, or Future State number 2. So here is the description for this issue. It reads, quote, "The moon colony built around Superwoman's Fortress of Solitude is under siege. Shape-shifting aliens have come to this place of peace in search of Lenari, a refugee from their homeworld. It's a bad move on the part of these intergalactic bad guys. If Kara Zor-El offers you sanctuary, there's no way she's going to let anyone get their monstrous hands on you. Let's just hope this gamble is worth it, because Lenari's secret, the one that got her in trouble in the first place, could mean bad news for everybody," unquote, exclamation point, unquote. So Morgan, what really kind of stuck out to you about this issue for Future State number 2?
Well, first off, I really like the sort of call back to issue number 1, where Superwoman threatens Lenari with the baseball and is like, this is some sort of, MacGuffin type thing.
What do we call it? A quantum detonator?
Yeah, a quantum detonator. And at some point in this issue, the family of Lenari, I can't remember what planet they're from.
Oh, hang on.
Swamp.
I think I've got that. Hang on, let me look it up. So, just to clarify, Lenari's family comes from. This is kind of quoting the issue. It says Lenari's family comes from a folk called the Lithai on the Star Swamp asteroid.
So the Lithai are like, here, I also have a quantum detonator, and Kara's like, LOL, I don't buy it. And then, of course, it does detonate and blow some stuff up, which I was really confused about, because you see like the huge explosion in the title page, and then that's never seemingly referenced ever again.
I was confused about that too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it almost seemed like Supergirl was maybe trying to prevent it from going boom. So on location 9, there's a big page, there are a lot of actions happening, but in that first little sort of I guess it's a panel, there's like a first panel on that page that it looks like, maybe I'm misreading it, but it looks like I keep wanting to say Supergirl. Superwoman is using her heat vision up on the fiery, what would you call that? Like a mushroom cloud kind of a thing.
Is
It
that her at the top of that? Are you on
I
page? Are you on location 7?
I'm on 9.
Location 9. All right, interesting. Okay, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. What? Okay. So yeah, honestly, I have no idea of the logistics of this explosion. Because on location 7, you see her like surrounded by flames, and she's talking about like all the people I've helped here, like all the things that I've done, and like, basically it was for nothing because of this explosion. And then like uh, the explosion kind of never comes back into play in the story.
Yeah, you would think that that would be a much more serious conversation to be had, especially with all the thematic elements in this series about growth and building things and gardening, tending to a garden.
So much gardening. So I'm on speaking of boardroom or ballroom,
Oh, wait. Should we?
I think we shall.
Okay.
And now, Lena Luthor, boardroom or ballroom. So, trying to figure out what's going on with this explosion took me to location 10. And first off, let me say, as she's fighting, the shoulders, as she's coming into her true power, more shoulder is showing.
I'll try to share the screen on this.
It is a very Lena vibe that is happening here. Like the more powerful she becomes, the more shoulder she shows. But it also makes me wonder, like in the last time we talked about this, I fixated pretty hard on her shoes, and now that I'm looking at it again, I have to ask myself, are they flats or are they the bottom of boots? And is what I once took as leggings under shorts in a way that didn't make sense to me, are those actually boots? Like thigh-high boots?
I think the things that look like sort of, for lack of a better word, like bicycle shorts.
Yeah.
Maybe they're. That's tough because I think
Right?
there's definitely a section where it's like boots.
Because if you can zoom in on her feet, and you can't because Comixology will not let you.
No.
No, it is not possible. It is not for us to know. But if say you could zoom in on it, which I'm going to try to do on my phone app, the only place where I can zoom, the only place that acknowledges that I have old, tired eyes. So it does look like we might be.
Do you want to show it to the
Yes,
camera?
it does look like we might be dealing with like a boot situation, like a bottom of the boot, like the sole of the boot is what I thought was a flat, but is in fact
I think it's
a
part
boot.
of the boot.
I didn't know that this. I didn't think that this was boots. I thought that this was like leggings because they don't look like boots in any way that I would describe boots.
Yeah, no, I think those are supposed to be boots. Now, the bicycle shorts, I think, may be a separate thing. But now that I'm looking at that that image, I guess the artist felt like there was a need to indicate that there were knees there, which I find off-putting a little bit. It's like, oh,
If we don't confirm she's got knees, who will know?
kneecaps are very prominent in that.
Yeah, because I will say in this issue, they do look more like boots than they did in the previous issue. So I can buy that like this is a boot. And although I could, if you told me like, no, that's not a boot, that's, those are like tights and that's a little flat. In this shot, I would buy that as well. So I just have like a lot of questions about what this new outfit is, what's going on, like south of the equator there, like from the knees down. I don't really know what's happening, and it's a little disconcerting. So that I just wanted to bring that up.
I'm more fixated on like the bike shorts. Like I don't understand those too
Like,
much.
the thing is, like,
Are they maybe pants? Is it like maybe all one thing? Do you
like
think?
maybe it's like
Is it a onesie?
yes, I think she's in a onesie, or maybe it's like a I don't, because I feel like okay, and then I'm gonna stop. Maybe. Because I feel like I could buy a scenario in which like the bike shorts are actually like leggings or tights and the boots are over top of them.
So the leggings would go
They-
would be tucked into the boots.
yes, so but I mean, I'm not sure if that's how you would visually represent that cuz they sure do look like bike shorts.
They do.
I just got like a lot of questions basically.
I
Because
don't know
here-
why you
here
wouldn't just
again-
do like full tights though.
Yeah, because like here again, they look like it looks like boots, and that's the bottom. I mean, they don't really look like boots, but I can buy that they're boots. Like they're shinier now than they were in
Yeah.
the previous issue, and I could buy that this is like the bottom of the sole, which is just a different color for some reason. Whereas like they don't look like in the previous issue, they really looked like they were flats. But in this, I can see like, oh, that looks like it's the bottom. Maybe the bottom sole of a boot. I don't know why this matters to me. It matters a lot though.
I actually think, even though I don't know that this new version of the Supergirl, now Superwoman costume, I don't know that it makes total sense in actual storytelling. I think it's a way to like try to reinvent the costume, even though I don't know that it totally works in comics. I think it would be cool cosplay. Like
I
somebody
thought that
could totally cosplay that.
immediately. The first issue, the first page I opened is her in her outfit, like standing at the cemetery, and I was like, I want to cosplay that. I would probably, because I'm lazy and I'm not like a true cosplayer, I would probably like Disney bound it, and it would just be like a skirt, right? Like just a red skirt.
Yeah.
And then like an off the shoulder, Lena Luthor style, and then like a belt. And then, but I don't know. But what would I do? What goes on below the knees? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to do it. I have no insight.
You can get some bike shorts, and you get some really tall boots.
You'd have to like split open a skirt too. That's just really funny. You're like, all right, I'm gonna get like a red midi skirt, and then I'm just gonna cut it down the middle, and then bike shorts in it. I guess bike shorts in it. I don't know. I have a lot of questions, but it would be a great cosplay outfit is the point for somebody who knows how to do that.
Yeah, you could just cosplayers. I have some friends who are really good cosplayers. We've had Christy Robinson on Supergirl Radio before. She's done some Supergirl cosplay, and they tell me that there's a thing called casual cosplay. So you have your official cosplay that you do, like that you create and you work on and you make your armor and do all that stuff. And then you casual cosplay, which means it's not really a costume, but you kind of emulate the character in like everyday wear. So you could like casual cosplay that. I think that could work.
Yeah, I think it works. Yeah. Sure it does.
Thank you for your continued analysis and really trying to get into the details of the new suit here.
Yeah, I'm really diving in deep. I'm asking the hard-hitting questions that for some reason nobody else wants to ask. I can't imagine why.
And this has been
Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom.
All right, so in this issue, we did get more from the what did I say? They were the Lethai, the creatures, the Lenari's undefinable creature family that we really can't figure out what they are. Are they sea creatures? Are they snakes? Are they reptiles? Are they dragons? Not totally sure. But we get more from them here, and there's kind of a big showdown that happens between Superwoman and Lenari and Lenari's family. So, Morgan, what did you think about all that?
Yeah, I thought that the battle was interesting. I like the way that I think it's on location 9 that it shows there's like a lot of movement. I was just really focused in on the boots, but the rest of the art is great as well. When Superwoman is fighting the Lanai, and like these snake people are not happy at all. And she's like grabbing them by their little snaky fishy tails and stuff like that and tossing them around. And it's like when you do the guided view, she's like everywhere. She's like punching people, and she's like screaming, and she's got like the eyes. And it's like, I could imagine if I was a snaky fishy person, I would be pretty afraid of what was happening right now.
Yeah, Superwoman basically says, if you want a tyrant queen, I'm going to give you a tyrant queen, and really starts to lose herself in the action and the violence, and getting back into the fighting with the Lethai, I think is what they're called. So Superwoman is trying to get into the action and help save the day and protect Lenari from the family that has now come to the moon colony. But there's a situation where Lenari grabs Superwoman's hand and does something similar to what happens in issue number 1, where Lenari takes Superwoman's power and uses that to become more powerful to fight the family. So what did you think about all of that in terms of how that went down?
I thought it was interesting because it was like it had been set up in the previous issue that Lenari had these powers that allowed them to like take the powers from somebody else. So it was kind of like, the writer set it up that, this makes sense for it to happen. And I did also like that Lenari, says these past few weeks I saw how much good might come from what you are and what you do, and how much danger there was in going back to this old path. I don't want to be the reason you lose what you fought so hard to find in yourself. And Lenari doesn't want that for themselves either. So I think what happens with Lenari and how Lenari fights their family is really inspired by Superwoman and what they learned being with Superwoman. Um, with all that said, I do kind of wish that the solution to this issue had been something that Superwoman herself got to figure out. It was a problem that she got to solve. At the end of the day, Lenari figures out a way out of their problem with their family by basically giving up and destroying the Starfell crystal, and basically
Starfall jewel.
the Starfall jewel. Oh, that's tough for me to say for some
It is
reason.
hard to say.
Lenari gives their family the same choice that Superwoman gave them. Like, if you could have anything or do anything, what would it be? And it can't involve, the family. And some of the family says, like, I don't want to wake up afraid. And the I don't know, like the angry dolphin one says, I want to go home. But the ant is like, nah, I'm not in it. I'm not in this. I don't want to be. I'm never giving up. And so when Lenari gives up the crystal,
Jewel.
gives up the jewel, they all become, I guess they lose their shape-shifting abilities. They all lose their shape-shifting abilities. And the ant is like not super happy about it. But Lenari loses all of their abilities, including the ability to suck up Superwoman's power, but also the ability to shapeshift. But this jewel that they've been fighting over is also gone. So I mean, I like that sort of resolution that everybody kind of has to live as they are, and this blood feud that had been going on for ages on this planet that had pitted like family against family, and that was kind of solved because now there's nothing to fight over. But again, I do wish that like it was like a clever solution that Lenari thought up. And it was about, how Lenari and their family, had this resolution, and that's all great. But where does Superwoman fit into this story? I get that Superwoman was the inspiration for Lenari coming up with this plan. I just wish there was like a little bit more of Superwoman in the resolution of this threat to the moon that Superwoman spent so much time and energy and it looks like architectural planning.
Yeah, I think the thing that there are two things I think that frustrate me about the way it resolves itself with the Lethai family. One, I think there is a need to complete the parallel. So we talked previously in issue 1 about how there was a parallel between Lenari having family issues and some rage issues and having a hard time letting go given that family squabble. And then you have the family squabble with Superwoman and Kal-El and John and how Kara has been dealing with that. Well, in Lenari's case, Lenari gets like a kind of a happy ending, is how I read it. That like the family is not shape shifting anymore, the jewel's gone, and now they can maybe start over, have a time to try to build that relationship back up. Well, but then if you have that parallel when they had all the problems, why is there not a parallel for a resolution to the problem with Kara? It seems to me that if you were going to make, and I keep reminding myself like this is only 2 issues, you only have so much story to tell, but to me it would have been more satisfying, I think, if there had been some sort of connection to where Kara realized maybe that she needed to start over with Cal and John, that maybe seeing what happened with Lenari and that family inspired her to make amends with her family.
Yeah, I think that would have been great because once again, they bring in this conflict that she has with Cal and John on location 8. You see her punching them. And it's like, again, it's like, what is the backstory on this thing? Like, just when I had started to like, okay, well, now we're getting into some Superwoman stuff and like the Superman and Supermans, I guess. Superman issue is not as big of a deal. And now, we have a flashback of her like literally fighting with them. And it's like, what scenario? Like, I understand being upset that like they kind of stole her thunder, which seems like a little bit of a petty like backstory to give her, but whatever. But like to have them like full out fighting, like it feels like there should have been more of a backstory there. And it like once again does the same thing I had in issue 1 where I go like, wait, what did I miss? That she's like punching Superman in the face. Like what's the
and making him bleed.
Yeah, what's the backstory on that? And like spoiler alert, we never get that. Like there's no backstory on that. We get a lot of backstory on Lenari and their family and how Lenari's father died to give Lenari this crystal, this jewel. I cannot remember it being a jewel. It's not possible. I love that every time that you correct me, you're like, it's a jewel. It's a jewel. But yeah, their father
I'm gonna keep doing it too.
I know, to give them this jewel. And we get this whole backstory, and like that's why the aunt is so mad, and the aunt blames Lenari for the father, killing himself, basically, or like, yeah, basically to give the jewel over because the jewel can only can only pass down once the previous owner dies.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Continue with your thought.
Oh, I was going to say, there's just so much backstory for Lenari's family situation. Meanwhile, I just got a panel of Kara punching Jonathan Kent in the face, and I have no context for it.
It would be nice to understand
Just a
why
little.
that's happening, just a little bit. Yeah, so I think that for me, if it was my story, and I really shouldn't review based on if it was my story, but it just seems like there should have been maybe more of a resolution to Superwoman's family and what was happening there, because we did get several flashbacks to some beef that they all had with each other, and we don't know how that went down. Um, so the other thing that I had questions about was that I thought in maybe issue 1, Lenari says that if the Starfall jewel leaves Lenari, if Lenari loses the Starfall jewel, then Lenari dies. Did you get that impression?
Yeah, I got that impression as well, and I was very confused at the end when it was like, "LOL, no probs."
I anticipated that when the Starfall jewel went away, Lenari would have problems, but Lenari was like, "Hey, everything's good. We're happy now." And I was very confused about that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's on location 14. Lenari gives away the jewel, which is not a crystal, and and Lenari comes back down to the moon and is like, "It's gone, Kara. I'm free." And then they hug. They hug, and it's a really cute panel. And they're both like, "Yeah." But it's also like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I thought that the only way to get rid of that jewel was to die, essentially. Like, I thought that if you lost that jewel, you die. How did this happen? I guess it was maybe by taking Superwoman's powers that Lenari was able to like get rid of the jewel without dying.
Maybe like the invulnerability of Superwoman.
Yeah.
Because I went back and looked it up in Future State number 1. I wrote down in my notes that if someone takes the jewel from Lenari, Lenari will die.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So yeah, I mean, maybe you could read it as Superwoman's powers prevented that. I could maybe buy that. It was not explained though in any way.
No, it wasn't. It was like suddenly it was like goodbye, because I just went back through that page, which is location 13, and Lenari in sort of like dragon form is like, then you won't die for your choice. You will live. We will all live. And then it was like, goodbye, Jewel. And that's it. Like, there is no explanation. The jewel just kind of pops out of Lenari's head and then just kind of like shring disappears. And okay. I just felt like there was a lot of hype about this jewel. That like maybe just a little bit of like comic book magic, like exposition would have been needed here. Just a little bit of hand waving, if you will. Anything, literally anything. I just watched Lenari turn into a dragon and hold 3 different watering cans in the last issue, and I bought that. So I'm really willing to buy anything. But I do need something. Yeah, I agree. Like, they had set it up like, if Lenari loses this jewel, they'll die. And then like in this one, it's like, bye, pop, and it just kind of like pings out of existence. I don't know.
Yeah, I was pretty confused about that. But it seems like everything gets kind of resolved with the family. Aunt Kamara seems fine with what's happening. And it sounded like at the end of the issue, it was like even the members of the Lethai family that had the problems, they came back to the moon colony, and everybody got all the cool things that Superwoman was offering, and all the ways that people were living here on the moon colony. Everybody was loving it and living for the gardening life. And so it seemed like everything was fine in the end with them.
Yeah, it was going,
is that how you read that?
It was going great. The thing is that Lenari's aunt at first was like, I don't like this. But then eventually their aunt was like, actually, it's great here and I love it. And I guess like wrote to the other family members and was like, greetings, family. We can stop killing each other. It's great here on the moon. Lots of flowers, lots of love. Visit soon. Wish you were here. And then everybody kind of showed up at the end, I guess. But also, okay, I have another question.
Okay.
Because I have poor reading comprehension apparently. For
This one was really hard. This
This-
series was hard to follow.
these
I'm
two
not gonna
issues
lie. It was hard
in
to follow.
particular. But on location 15, you see Lenari and you see the ant. And Lenari says, like, I used the powers I took from Superwoman, became stronger than I've ever been before. Your abilities are gone, Aunt Kimara. So are mine, burned up. There's no more Starfall Jewel. But then in like the next panel, there's like a dragon creature again. Is that supposed to be Lenari? Is that supposed to be the ant? Is that supposed to be just another family member? I thought that they didn't have powers and couldn't shapeshift.
Well, and the dialogue there is confusing. It says, "What we were born to have, that we will get back one day. All things come back one day."
Oh.
So
okay, so
I don't understand what that means.
So I feel like I don't understand what that means either.
Were they born as those creatures? Is that what it's saying? Like,
I feel like maybe what I understand from that is that they maybe were born with shape-shifting abilities and they will get that back. I don't know. It's not clear. It's not clear in any way, right? Like
it sounds really profound, but I don't understand.
I feel like I'm going crazy because I just don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like at some point in the future they'll regain their shape-shifting powers and get back what they had lost.
Yeah, I mean,
I
feel like that's never really explored either. Like, it's not like, and then one day, like, we all turned back into fish dragons, and it was fun. And we missed the feel of the sea in our many arms. Like, it wasn't like that. I don't know. I just had so many questions, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah, speaking of the sea, I thought that the background on the Lethai was it was kind of a dueling family, like it was almost like families had been split up, and there were members of the family that took to the quote filthy sea, unquote.
Oh, yeah.
And then so I guess the members of the family that they looked down on, they went to the filthy sea.
Those are the sea people.
They were the gross ones.
They
And
were
then-
the disgusting mer people.
and then Kamara's side of the family kept to the sky, so that seemed to be the difference.
They were like, we're majestic, like birds.
Although I want to bring this up because I am a person of southern habitat in the United States, I guess you could say, and I took a little bit of offense of how the Lethai spoke in this issue. So let me see. It almost reads like they were speaking in a southern accent. I found it a little offensive just because they were the bad guys, and
You
I was like,
mentioned
"What is?"
that before we started recording, and I was like, they did?
Anytime somebody's dropping their G's in dialogue, that's very that's very much the southern way of speaking. And I took offense to the
They do
bad
say,
guys.
I reckon.
Yeah, I took offense to the bad guys being portrayed as a little bit of a southern accent to some things. So like sometimes they say, "I reckon you're only out here mucking up your nice flower beds," and then another piece of dialogue is, "And now." Not saying the D, they came here to your little backwater hoping for a fresh start. And then there's another one that says, "You got the look of some gunslinger who done hung up her pistols." And I don't know. It was a little over the top for me. I couldn't understand why these creatures had this accent. It didn't seem like it came from somewhere that would. I mean, the in the previous issue, we were shown like this beautiful stained glass presentation of their history and their culture. Yes. And then they're talking like southerners out with their guns. Like I didn't understand the connection there between the history and the backstory we were told, and then like the accents that they were speaking with.
I agree, because first off, Nari never speaks with that accent. So you think if it was like a regional thing,
Yeah.
it would have popped up by now. But also, there's like so much going on with the Lethai on location 4. We get like a little drawing where there's like a Lethai, like a little white Lethai and a little black Lethai, and they're like kind of intertwined. And the white one has what looks like just little like flippers, and the black one has like little wings. And I was like, oh, is it like like the sea and the sky? I feel like there's like so much going on in this little society that it's really hard to keep track of in 2 issues.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard to keep up with all this stuff. I had to make extensive notes just to keep up with it. It felt like a lot in 2 issues.
But also, okay, and I will let this go eventually. But Lanari comes from the filthy sea folk. I think we've established that, right? Right? We've established that. But then on location 5, when you see them screaming at her, I gotta say, those are some fish people. I don't know why they're being all uppity about like taking to the sky, because they've got like flippers and fins and fish mouths. Like why why, if they're the sky people, just from like a visual standpoint, do they look like giant fish?
The only thing that I would suggest is that maybe they all look the same, but
Maybe.
some of them chose to go to the sea, and some of them chose to stay in the air, but they all
Maybe
look the same, and it just depended on where they wanted to hang out at the time.
maybe the point that they're making is that we're all not so different after all. And you might think that you're better than somebody because you're a fish person in the sky and they're a fish person in the water. But at the end of the day, aren't y'all just fish people?
I think that's a fair critique, though.
I think that's a profound statement of of shared humanity, fishmanity.
Fishmanity. I think that's a fair critique because they do go to great lengths to separate these 2 sections, these segments of the Lethai community, the culture, and they say that some are in the filthy sea. They really tarnish the people going to the sea, and then it's yeah. Now I'm really confused.
I'm sorry to add that extra dimension. I feel like it wouldn't even have bothered me if I hadn't like really hyper focused on the first panel on page 4, where like one of the little drawing Lethai has like little flippers and the other one has little wings, and I was like, wait a minute.
Well, and just to kind of break it down even further, the creatures on location 5, that's Lanari's family, who were in the filthy sea.
Okay,
correct?
Well, I don't think so, because like the
oh no, they
first,
seemed more uppity about it. So
yeah,
they took to the sky. So they're sky Lethai.
Yeah, there's sky Lethai, and Lanari came from the sea Lethai.
You're correct. Yes.
But like there's some amount of difference in this like sort of artistic panel, which would lead you to believe that like maybe there's some sort of difference, but then everybody looks like a fish person. I don't know. I'm too focused on this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And yet
I think this is a really good point. I think in this depiction, especially on location 5, I think they should have had little bird wings.
Yeah, I think everybody should have just kind of looked the same, and then maybe there are different colors to kind of like represent that like they've split off in some way. But like one of them for real looks like has a dolphin head. Like I can't pretend I'm looking at a dolphin, man. That dolphin wants to go home, and you should let that dolphin go home. There's just a lot. Again, I think it's making a point about our shared fishmanity. Like they think that they're better. They think that they're better because they're
Right.
flying in the sky. But are they better? That's a dolphin person. You're just a dolphin person in the sky. You still came from the sea, my friend.
That is a really, really good point. There was a lot of confusion with Lenari's family and what that meant for what happens here. I guess the other thing that I want to ask you about, Morgan, is what do you think about how things ended at the end of this issue? We get more information and visuals about how the moon colony ended up, but then we find out that Superwoman is dead and buried next to Crypto.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think about this possible future here?
R.I.P. Superwoman. So again, it's so annoying. Again, I had questions because okay, Lenari is younger than Kara for sure. She that's established in the beginning.
Yes.
Because Kara calls Lenari a child.
Yeah.
But Superwoman / Supergirl / Kara, she lives for a long, long time. Like Kryptonians live for a long time.
Yeah, typically they will seemingly live forever. Sometimes they're depicted as graying a little bit,
Mhm.
but they tend to live a long time.
But Lenari outlives Kara, which was my first bit of confusion. And then at a later point, Kara is like an older, like an actual Superwoman, like kind of more of like a super golden girl. And Lenari still seems very spriteful in this locate at the bottom of location 17. Lenari is like 30 and flirty and thriving, and and Superwoman's in her like Helen Mirren phase of her life, and I just don't. I mean, still like looks great, but like obviously like Helen, but I just didn't. I was really confused. I was like, wait a minute, Superwoman lives like a really long time. Like, I guess Lenari's race lives longer.
Yeah, I guess the Lethai folks live a long time, but I also now am thinking, well, how does that make sense given that like I would have bought that maybe they lived a long time with their abilities. Maybe they
Mhm.
had the supernatural abilities that maybe helped lengthen their lifespan, but when they had them removed, you would think that that would take something away from them. I mean, I guess I can just assume that they live a long time, but it seems like having removed those powers should have done something to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Made them like a normal lifespan again.
That's what I would think, something like that. Yeah, I had questions. That I feel like one tiny line of dialogue, like a sentence that it's like, "Oh, like Kryptonians, the Lethai live a long time, and so we got to see the fruits of like Kara's labor." Literally, that would have been like, "Okay, I understand." But instead, I was just like, "Wait, they're living longer than Kara, Superwoman, the Kryptonian?
Yeah.
Maybe that Kara is now on the moon and doesn't have access to the yellow sun, and so
But that
ages more."
but
what
she
do you
still
think?
had her abilities though.
She did, so that doesn't make sense. But also, like, if that was me, I would just visit Earth for like vacations and recharge.
Yeah, oh yeah, or just fly up into the sun. You're already at the moon.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
sometimes
mean,
like
you should be close by.
we've seen Kara get mad and fly into the sun because she's like having a moment. So so I mean, I feel like if you're like, "Oh, I don't want to age," I would just like fly up, recharge my battery, and then just go back down to my flower moon planet. I don't know, that threw me off, and I wanted to know what after I read it, I was like, Can Rebecca explain this to me? Like, what
I can't.
did you have a different take on that?
I did not, but I think it's a fair point to ask about the age and the lifespan of these different characters, because it is strange to see a Kryptonian be outlived in the process. I also just before we leave the Lethai, I also thought this issue. So in issue number 1, it seemed to be, in my opinion, kind of down on Superwoman, on Kara, and this one goes into a little bit more detail about her beef with Cal and John. So, like on location 8, Kara seems to refer to John as a usurper. That's how I took that, and seems to also refer to him as stealing her powers, her legacy, and the story that she should have had. So, there's still a lot of that in here. And this series, just these 2 issues seem to be a lot about how Kara's against Cal and John, and it almost makes her seem like she is less than them in some regards, and I wasn't really crazy about that. So like Lenari's family, when they come to the moon colony, they talk about how they know about 2 Kryptonians, and I assumed that the 2 Kryptonians they knew about were Cal and John, but they say that they have never heard of, quote, this one, unquote, which I assumed meant Kara. So it almost seemed like Kara was less known or less important, and that was a little disappointing for me. Although I think the issue kind of corrects things a little bit and tries to make Superwoman seem much better in the end, because Lenari says, quote, if people were kinder and finally realized how good, how amazing, how splendid, and how super she was, talking about Kara, and had been for so long, unquote. And she kind of said, Lenari says something like, well, no one is born wise. And so I guess there's that idea that people don't respect Kara because they're not wise. They don't pick up on all the good things that Superwoman has done. So I guess there's that. So it does seem to sort of celebrate Kara Zor-El at the end, but it was tough to see characters in the story continually beat her down, and that was kind of tough to read through for me personally.
Yeah, I agree. I like that the grace note she gets at the end, that, all of the work that she did, like finally the very unenthusiastic people of the moon uh come out to help her because she's lost her powers for a little while, and they help her with her gardening, and they help her like put her plants, and they help her city plan, and they help her put up her like greenhouses and things like that. And then, her legacy of helping people and caring about people lives on in this moon planet, that's like a refuge for anyone who needs it, and that they remember her, and that, she was such an important person. I think all of that is really nice. You see her grave next to Crypto's at the end, but you also see this society that she created with, I guess her architecture degree or whatever, and and with the help of all the people who were very medium on her for most of this run. Most of this run. So I liked all of that, but yeah, I do feel like she was kind of beat down before that. For most of this, there wasn't like a lot of like high notes for her until the very end.
Yeah, so at least I got that towards the end. I was okay with it by then, but it was just tough to see her continue to be sort of put down and put down and put down, and then in addition to that, continuing to be angry and dealing with rage and family issues. So it was I'm okay with like Kara Zor-El or Superwoman, Supergirl having issues and having tension with other people and having something to have to overcome, or having something that will give the character some growth. But it just seemed like the issue just kept pounding Kara over and over again. But yeah, so that was kind of my issue there. I did like seeing in this second issue a return of the garden metaphor. So that through line is still here in this one. So like on location 3, there's a line of dialogue that says, "I reckon you're only out here mucking up your nice flower beds." Location 15 says that Lenari tells Aunt Kamara that they're going to, quote, learn about cities and flowers and dogs and people, unquote. Location 16 has the citizens of the moon colony working together to build what looks like a garden to me.
Yeah.
Location 17 says, quote, "So people came to learn and grow," unquote. So I took that to be a metaphor of like growing like a plant in a garden, but you're growing emotionally, you're growing maybe physically, and you're growing into who you're supposed to be. Location 18 says, quote, "Her once desolate fortress of solitude blooms with life now and for generations to come," unquote. And then location 19 says, quote, "Still they thrive, an eternal garden," unquote. So, and even on that page, Kara's grave marker has a flower on it. So I appreciated that there was a commitment by the writer here and in this series to have that through line of this garden metaphor, even though it seemed like maybe some of those threads could have been pulled a little more. But I appreciate that there was a continual, consistent storytelling thematic element there for Kara.
Yeah, I agree. I like the garden imagery, and there's flowers in the background of so many scenes in the first issue and in this issue, even to the point where like Aunt Kamara pops up and Lenari is telling their aunt that like I took away the powers, but in the background there's all these trees and all these flowers, and there's pretty much flowers everywhere, like throughout. After the fighting stops, it's all flowers all the way. I also thought it was really interesting on location 17 at the bottom, that Kara says this was once called a fortress of solitude. I don't think it deserves that kind of name now, which I thought was interesting, like that this was kind of her fortress of solitude.
That's how I saw it. Like the greenhouse was the fortress of solitude, which makes sense visually, because it sort of gives off that old Donnerverse depiction of the fortress of solitude with the white crystals and the sort of snowy Arctic fortress of solitude. But here it's a greenhouse, like it's a greenhouse that's very it almost looks like it's icy, but we know it's not because it's a greenhouse. But it sort of gives off that same visual aesthetic of what that depiction of the Fortress of Solitude would be. And I think if I think about it in terms of Kara as a gardener, she might have spent some time in that greenhouse just by herself. Initially she may have
totally see that.
She may have just, and this is me just inserting my interpretation into the story. This is not shown really in the story, but I imagine that she would have gone to that greenhouse for isolation or solitude so that she could work on her plants and her garden. And now she doesn't have to, because she's taught the people of the moon colony to grow things and be their own gardeners and create their own garden. So she's opened that up. I guess after she dies, they just go in and make it their own, I guess. So yeah, I think that's a nice way to end it.
Yeah, I like the ending, even though I was confused about why certain characters outlived certain other characters. But I like the idea of like Superwoman's legacy living on through this planet that she had created, and the society and all of her pretty flowers and things.
Yeah, so I like the connective thread there between both issues. Okay, so let's is there anything else you wanted to mention about this issue before we move on to the art?
No, I think we covered everything.
All right. So Morgan, did you have any favorite pages or panels in this one?
I did. I liked a lot of the art in this one. I liked on page 14 where Supergirl and Lenari hug and they're like, "Yeah, it's great." Victory. I also like page 16, where all the townsfolk come to help Superwoman um plant her gardens and put up her greenhouses, and there's like flowers everywhere, and Superwoman is like, here's my plan that I have. It's, I hope it's to scale. And I really like, again, it's like one of those pages that is doing like a lot of narrative work, but I totally I think it did a really good job at showing, showing people kind of pitching in and helping out. And I also like the next page too, where we start to see page 17, where we start to see Superwoman age, and the things that she had planted start to, flourish. I thought that was really nice as well.
Yeah, I would agree with you about page 16. I really like the artistic style here in this series, where some of these full pages are not really panels. I like the idea that everything is sort of flowing into the next image, and everything
Yeah.
is connected, and you get to see the layers of each piece. It looks like it's one big art art piece, but there's different scenes depicted in it. So I really like the way that works together. And also on page 16, I just thought it was cool at the bottom. It looks like Kara has a little like red skull cap on, like a
Oh
little
yeah.
toboggan thing. Like I thought
Yeah,
that was kind of cute.
I thought that was really cute. I was like, ah, Kara's so stylish.
Does it get cold there?
I don't know. That's a
What-
good question. Maybe
does,
it's just
does
for
it get,
fashion.
does it get cold on the moon? I don't know. I'm not a NASA scientist. I don't know.
I speaking of like the panels that kind of flow into each other, location 9 has that same vibe when she's fighting the Lethai. And I really like, it has a real sense of movement, a real sense of battle. She's kind of like, bursting from one panel into another panel, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, literally like hopping from one panel to the next. Yeah, that's a great observation. Um yeah, I guess the only thing I would also point out about the art is that on page 17, we talked about the Fortress of Solitude and the visual depiction of that there, but I really like page 17 and the way the greenhouse acting as the Fortress of Solitude is depicted there. It looks like a bright, shiny place that would be inviting, and some place cool to maybe go in and see plants. It kind of made me want to go to the greenhouse and see what was in there. So I did like that page a lot. All right, Morgan. So we have officially read all of Future State Kara Zor-El
did it.
Superwoman.
All
I'm
two.
I am really proud of us. We read through Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. We read that.
Check.
Then we're marking off Future State Kara Zor-El Superwoman. So we're
Goodbye.
so
We did it.
We are getting through these runs.
We were just powering through.
We will get to Rebirth sometime in the future,
It's gonna happen.
in the distant future.
I believe in us.
I mean, we got through like 30 something issues of that run.
We got through quite a bit. We're like pretty close to the end.
We'll get there eventually. We'll finish that one off. But now that we have read both issues of Future State Superwoman, Morgan, what did you think about these two issues in this story?
Overall, I liked Future State. I think it wasn't. I think the other problem is that like we just came off reading. Oh my god,
Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow.
yeah. I was gonna say Superwoman of Tomorrow, and I was like, that's not right.
It's so confusing
It's
now with the
all
Superwoman.
blended.
Yeah.
It's all blended in my head. But we just came off reading Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which I thought was one of the better Supergirl runs I've read thus far. And I'm not saying that this run is bad or anything. It's good. It's like enjoyable, but I just don't think it really stacked up. And again, it was 2 issues, so I don't really know how it could have, but I do wish it had either pulled in the Supergirl family conflict stuff more, or had left it out entirely. Because I think for me, that was one of my biggest critiques, is that the family stuff with Supergirl, I understand that it was trying to, balance it against the family stuff with Lenari, but I don't think it really worked for Supergirl because we didn't have the backstory on that family conflict, and it also didn't ever resolve in any way, to your point. So it just felt like it was kind of just there. I didn't mind like a Supergirl who was like a little bit more resentful, but was kind of working through that. But I do wish that she had gotten maybe a couple more wins in the series. Hey, Bunsen. He's behind me. He's definitely gonna knock over my ring light in a couple of minutes. So
He loves it. He loves the light.
He loves the light. It's what he wants the spotlight, but not to be in it, just to get its warmth. Right, Bunsen? You just want the warmth of the spotlight on you. He's literally behind the computer. It's really funny. He's just staring at me. Hey, buddy. Yeah, so like I thought it was enjoyable, and I liked the story of her and Lenari, and I do like getting to see Supergirl through like the eyes of other characters, kind of like we did with Ruthie in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So it's kind of a similar vibe where it's like kind of a mentor relationship that she has with this younger alien. But I just felt like it was like almost really successful, but there was like a couple of things that kind of pulled it back from being as enjoyable as the Tom King run. But I did really like the art. The art was really nice. I liked the story. I just kind of wish it was a little bit more Supergirl focused in the long run.
I didn't love these two issues. It wasn't like my favorite Supergirl thing that I've read. And of course, this is actually a Superwoman thing. So maybe that I should make that distinction. But I did like that the art took some chances in a lot of ways and did something visually creative with a lot of these pages. So I thought the art was doing a pretty good job. And some of the themes that were running through it, I did like with the gardening metaphor and all of that. So I think it tried to say something about family and about rage and letting things go and being able to move on and grow and build something new. So I think even in 2 issues, I think it actually tried to say something. So I will give it that, even though it's not my favorite Kara Zor-El thing that's ever been written. I still think it had some good things that were inserted into the story.
I agree.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our thoughts on Future State number 2, Kara Zor-El Superwoman. If you haven't bought it yet, Future State number 2, Kara Zor-El Superwoman is available at your comic book store, Amazon Kindle, Apple iBooks, Barnes & Noble Nook, Comixology, Google Books, and Read DC. And I guess it's now time for us to get to some Supergirl Radio and some DC TV plugs. If you'd like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Supergirl Radio, Superman and Lois Radio, The Flash Podcast, and Legends of Tomorrow Podcast, Black Lightning Podcast, Batwoman Podcast 2, and Titans and Doom Patrol Podcast just for you. Justice League Dark Podcast, Green Lantern Podcast, Stargirl Podcast, Strange Adventures Podcast, and finally my favorite of the bunch, DC TV After Dark, where you're allowed to say
And since you're listening to or watching Supergirl Radio, we have some Snap Judgment designs in the DCTV Podcast TeePublic store.
Yeah, we have a one-of-a-kind Snap Judgments design in the DCTV Podcast TeePublic store, created by Sarah Louver, who you may know as at Comiker Girl on social media. So we have probably the only Snapper car merchandise available on the internet.
That is true.
That's my guess. So if you want some Snapper car and and you like Snap Judgments on Supergirl Radio, pick up a t-shirt or a mug or a hoodie or something. So it's pretty cool to have some Snap Judgments designs and merch that you can pick up if you so choose to do so. We would also like to talk about our Supergirl Radio Patreon and thank our Legion of Super sponsors for supporting it. These people are Michael, Sam, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Quinn, Nicola, Leslie, Abby, Ermgard, Miriam, Nicole, Lizeth, Faith, Brian, Ethan, and Danny. If you would like to become a Legion of Super if you would like to become a Legion of Super sponsor. Am I saying that correctly? Why does that sound weird in my head?
It does sound weird.
If you would like to be a Patreon supporter, I guess I will say that, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio and choose from 4 monthly memberships to help us pay for podcasting and website hosting fees and things like that. And it helps keep the podcast going. So we really appreciate everybody's support for the Supergirl Radio Patreon. And you can find me on social media on Vero at Derby Kid, on Instagram at The Derby Kid. And you can also check out my personal YouTube channel at youtube.com/DuckMilkProd, where I talk about the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice reviews from the top critics of Rotten Tomatoes, one review at a time. So if you're interested in art criticism and film criticism and how to do that, I try to talk about that in a very positive way that's not so negative about anybody else's opinions about certain movies. But I think it's been a good exercise into trying to figure out how to talk about those things. And I try to apply some of those things when we talk about things and review things on Supergirl Radio. So if you want to check those out, follow me and subscribe over there on my personal YouTube channel.
Nice. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic. And you can also find me as a co-host on the Legends of Tomorrow podcast as we try to figure out what the next phase of the Legends of Tomorrow podcast is now that they unceremoniously canceled the Legends of Tomorrow television show. We've got some fun ideas and we haven't quite figured it out yet. But the one thing we do know is that we're not going to stop podcasting. So this is actually a great, have you ever thought maybe I should listen to that podcast? You know what? This is a great time to hop on board because what's it about? We don't know yet. And neither will you. And won't the ambiguity be fun for all of us? That's going to be my pitch until we figure it out. And you can also find me as a co-host on DCTV After Dark, where we just released an episode with Nate and Brittany from the Naomi podcast. And we had a great time talking to them. So we are sticking to our commitment of doing episodes this year.
Yeah.
And it has been going okay so far in that we've done 2 and they've only been like a little late. So I'm proud of us.
I think you're doing a great job.
We're crushing it.
Yeah. I'm really proud of y'all. I think you're knocking it out of the park here in 2022. Look forward to more Morgan Glennon podcasts. Morgan Glennon is one of my favorite podcasters, so I highly recommend both shows if you have never listened to any of them. So I definitely think you should check them out. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio, one of the many podcasts that Morgan does. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And we hope that you will check out Future State number 2, Kara Zor-El, Superwoman, and support Supergirl Comics.
McGurk! I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because of the outfit.
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.